We're recording. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel, Channeling Jesus and Ananda. This is a new series that I am doing right now, inspired by Spirit to do. Course in Miracles stories. I've called it How to Save Your Life because Course in Miracles has saved my life. I don't think I'd be here without it. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I thought it'd be really interesting to interview people who have been doing the course for some time. So today we're honored with Eva Flod. She's from Sweden, and I don't know her story. So I'm very, very excited. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being willing to tell your Course in Miracles stories. We're all eager to hear it. So I've got a series of questions that I generally structure the interview with. So how long have you been doing A Course in Miracles?
I have been doing it for 3 years now, but I read the textbook through twice, 7 years prior to that. And then it lay on my shelf for 7 years.
Lay on your shelf looking at you for a while, which it does
Exactly.
with a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and what prompted you to begin the course? What happened?
My eldest son, he transitioned 10 years ago. And a couple of months after that, I read some books by Deepak Chopra, and he mentioned the course. And I knew I had to look that up. So I did. And I started reading in the middle of my grief and my confusion and my pain.
And did you find even in that reading that it helped you?
Very much.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Because
much.
I remember when I first started the course, and now this story is not about me, but I do like to kind of throw in something if it's similar. I was separated from my children when the course came from me. They were 8 and 11 years old, and they were living with their dad after our separation. And I was so filled with guilt. I was in a lot of pain. I was separated from my sons, not in the same way that you were, but I was very, very distraught about it. And that's what I found is when I picked that book up, my suffering stopped. Is that what your experience was?
Well, no, my suffering didn't stop, but I had daily hours of relief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
and
kind of what I meant. It didn't stop.
Yeah.
It stopped when I was reading the book.
Yes.
It didn't stop when I went back
Yeah.
to my own consciousness.
No, it was like, I always think of warm, soft butter. It was like that for my soul. It's very, very soothing. And I also had very deep experiences, healing experiences, that
yeah, you can go into some detail about what when you're
so my son, he transitioned through suicide, and he hanged himself. And for me, I know that this evokes a lot of emotions in people when I talk about this, but to me, I would say it's almost neutral to me now.
Wow.
Since he is not dead.
Yes, right.
And when I got to the parts in the textbook where Jesus talks about the crucifixion, overcoming death is just an illusion, he's not a body. When I read those parts, I did not read I or me when Jesus referred to himself. Yes. But I read the letters of my son's name. Okay. I could clearly see it said Simon. And the images that I got was not Jesus hanging on the cross, but my son hanging from the roof.
Oh my goodness.
And I read it and I thought, this is very strange because this book was written in the 70s. How can this be? How can it say Simon? How can this be about my son?
You literally thought it was printed in the book?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I saw it.
Oh, okay.
I saw his name. And I understood that it was strange, but I accepted it, and I felt hope, because it said there, I mean, he's not a body, he overcame death, he's not dead, he's alive. And then a couple of months later, when I had read the textbook through, I took it up again and read it through once again. And now when I got to these parts about the crucifixion, I could clearly see that it was Jesus, it was about Jesus. And I saw it said, I and me and so on.
Yes.
And I realized, okay.
Hang on a second. Just got to hang on. Sorry to interrupt you. I've just got to plug in this computer, otherwise it's going to go off. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
and then I once again, I thought it was strange, because I knew that the last time I had read it, it was about Simon, but now it's about Jesus. I thought that was strange, but I accepted it. And I realized that something within me was healed.
Mm.
And
so, yeah.
I had, and the course, the text was a proof to me that what I had felt in my heart, that my son cannot be dead. He just cannot be. I got it on paper, so to speak. So that was
A true miracle, really, a true miracle.
Yes, a true miracle.
So some people would say, oh, that was your distraught mind making up a hallucination. But of course, as course students, we know it's called A Course in Miracles for a reason.
Yeah.
It's called A Course in Miracles for a reason, right? We literally are healing our minds, and the kind of grief that you must go through at losing a son is, I think, is probably the worst thing ever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe being a quadriplegic or something would be really bad, but I think for most people, they think that losing a child would be the worst thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you did the lessons, how did the lessons feel to you? Did you enjoy doing them, or did you find them weird, or what was your experience of doing the lessons? Because that's generally where I suggest people start, because the text is very challenging to read. You kind of did it the opposite way around. You did the text first, and were you reading that in Swedish when you read the text?
Yes.
Okay, but how were the lessons for you? Did you struggle with them? How was it?
I was very motivated. I felt a very high energy in doing the lessons. I can't say that it was difficult. Of course, some of them were strange, but it wasn't difficult. The difficult thing was to remember doing them, and to have, during the day, interrupt what you were doing and to switch over to the lessons. That was difficult, but not the content in itself. I found it very fascinating.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously that experience you had with the text and seeing that word with your son's name was very, very significant. What else have you noticed in your life? How has it influenced sort of your daily life? Like how do you see it working?
My mind is more calm, more silent, more observing, less reacting. I'm not judging, I'm not critiquing, criticizing.
Criticizing you.
Of course I do sometimes, of course I do, but it has really been, sinking, like for every month I go lower and lower and calmer, happier and happier.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, so I've been doing this, I'll say the course has been influencing me for about 21 years now.
Yeah.
And obviously my life has completely transformed. I have a different career. I have a different income. I have that experience of peace 99% of the time. You've not been doing it very long, so this is a really dramatic result that you're getting very, very quickly. Now, I remember early on in the course, within the first few months of doing the course, that I would start to get blocks of time where my mind was quiet, and I had never experienced that before. I didn't know what was going on. Blocks of peace for, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, and I would think, my mind is completely silent. What the heck is happening here? Did you have that experience of increasing periods of peace?
Yes, yes, I do. I have the last 2.5 years. So I started doing the lessons 3 years ago, and I want to say that before that and after my son's death,
Yeah.
I have done a lot of inner work and grief work, and I've been very much into my inner life. So
Right.
the
Outer life
lesson,
hasn't been a focus.
no, no. I've had a condition in my feet for 2.5 years now, which has come to me for my spiritual development, for my spiritual journey. So I have not been able to walk or stand for more than very short periods. I have been guided to sit still, listen to God, be alone. Yeah.
So that's a very drastic change then. So somebody might say that's a negative and they'd rush off to the doctor to try and fix it, but you're literally responding to it. What it's asking of you, you're doing, which is sit down, stop moving.
Yes, I have been protesting as well. I've had my moments.
Right, of course.
But I have gradually accepted it more and more, and I know that it's getting better. The more congruent I am. I've also changed my business. I've changed my life. The more I do of that, the better my feet get. So
interesting. So
there is a timetable for this.
Can you describe the work change? What were you doing and what are you doing now? Because this is happening to a lot of people after COVID, right? They're having to change jobs or change locations because of different
so
things.
I've been a psychologist for 20 years.
Okay.
And when my son died, I quit my job and started my own business in a very, very very slowly.
Right.
Since I was in grief and so on. But after starting the course, it was knocking on my door in here, saying to me, Eva, there will become a day where you cannot continue like as a psychologist. You must do something else. This is not you. And I said, no, this is fine for me. But 1.5 years ago, I decided that I will return my license because what I want to do is not, it doesn't, the frame, the psychologist frame is too narrow for me.
Right.
So I returned my license in June this year. And now I work as a channeler and a healer and an intuitive therapist.
Oh,
and
fabulous. So
you
attribute that to doing the course, this transformation, and are these new skills that you've developed in the last 3 years, or have you always had them?
No, this is new.
Okay.
I had started channeling before, some months before started doing the course. I channeled through writing, but now I channel through my voice as well. And this has been a journey with in this foot condition, my foot phase of life. I have this I listen to my guidance because things get better if I do, and things get worse if I don't.
Yes, you've got a direct and instantaneous reflection of your frequency in your feet, I'm guessing.
Yes, that's exactly.
And now, do you know who's coming through your channeling? Who you're channeling?
I channel my spirit guides, and they have
Mhm.
been with me now for 3 years, a little more than 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've channeled my 2 sons who have transitioned, because Simon's younger brother also transitioned 20 years before
Oh my goodness.
as a newborn. So I channel them. I channel my father and some other uh, deceased people
Right. Okay.
and Jesus.
And Jesus. Jesus loves to channel.
Yeah, yeah.
So what kind of information are your sons bringing through for you? I'd be very curious because I don't think I've ever met anyone who's channeling a child that has transitioned. What kind of information are they bringing you?
Well, it has been, I've channeled them a couple of times. It has been about their transitioning, what happened, how they have, how it was for them, and what the purpose was, and their love and their attention for me and my life and what I do. And especially Simon, he is actually very involved in what I'm doing
Right.
now.
Okay.
Uh,
That must feel really good.
yes, it's really good, and it's him. It's really his personality, you know. I mean, he's yeah. So that's
Fascinating. And is that something that you will be sharing with people in the future, or is this purely personal for you at this time?
I don't know. I've shared it within the community. I've shared some of the
Mhm.
channeling. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's early days. I know when I first started channeling, well, actually, Ananda started writing a book basically the day they started channeling. They were not in it. They were not patient. So they hit the ground running with me. But I can just imagine that would be very helpful at some point for people to hear that dialogue and their conversations with you through channeling.
yeah,
That'd be really cool. And
yeah,
obviously, not pressuring you in any way, just curious, just
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, we'll see. I'm open to many things. So
yeah, right. So you're finding this new life of channeling and intuitive work, you're finding it much more interesting and in alignment than what you were doing before.
yes, very much so. And I feel I'm much more spontaneous. I'm a better therapist. I'm happier. I don't go down to to the low frequency where my clients are. I don't go down there anymore.
Mhm. And you used to,
Um,
maybe a bit?
I maybe a bit. I help them release trauma. So yes, I went there, but I always went there with tools to help them, of course. But
Mhm.
now I'm much more aware of frequencies and the importance of my own frequency
Mm.
to help them see things in another way.
Right. So when you're going through your daily life, how do you use the course teachings? Let's say if your partner does something annoying or you get some news that you is bad. How do you work with it in that sense? How do you use it?
I I have I have some specific lessons that I often use, that
Right.
I often go to. I have always have my book with me, so if I'm really upset, I sit down with a book.
Right.
I try to do my forgiveness work and to bring it to whatever that person is doing. I try to see, okay, Eva, when do you do this? When have you done this?
Right.
Try to forgive myself. And the forgiveness practice of the course has been my, I don't want to, but sorry.
I said it's been your salvation.
Yes.
Yes.
It has. It really has. It's I could not have had any I mean I don't think there is any, how do you say, earthly psychotherapy, or there is, I could not have been healed the way I have through the forgiveness work. It's so I lack words.
And it's so interesting, of course, that Helen Schuckman, who channeled the course, was she was a psychotherapist, psychologist.
Yeah.
And so psychologist. So this is a psycho-spiritual text that leads you deep into your own consciousness with Jesus as your guide to help you see where your mind is crazy.
Yeah.
Or off track or misdirected, right? So so it's a fabulous segue from your original work, because you've seen what traditional therapy can and cannot do, obviously, as a psychologist. Then you're now having a three ongoing experience of what the course can do.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing an absolute transformation of your mind.
Yes.
And your life.
Yes, my life and the meaning of the whole
game here.
Yeah, exactly. The meaning of the whole thing, why I'm here, and why I've had these experiences, why I've lost my children, which I haven't lost anyone, but I thought I had. But I can see the meaning of this play.
Can you elaborate a little bit what you see the meaning of this plane as? Because it's a very different interpretation than most ordinary people have of why we're here. Can you sort of give us a little hint of what you think the meaning is?
The meaning for me, with all my challenges, and they started when I was a little child. They didn't start with my son dying. Sons dying. They started earlier. Let me get this. I'll try to make this short. This is not something I speak to many people about. It's a game. It's a play.
Okay.
And it wants to tell me about my relationship with God. It wants to show me my separation, my dissociation, my shut down condition, my saying no to God. It wants to show me that, so that I can choose differently. That's the very short version.
Right. So we accuse God of abandoning us, but truly we have abandoned God. And that's the choice that we have to shift and change. So we're choosing separation all the time with our mind through judgment and guilt and those kinds of things. And when we relinquish those things through this practice, then we feel more love, not only for ourselves and for others, but the separation begins to fade. And we stop suffering so much. Yeah, it's a beautiful experience. It's just lovely to hear the different variations on it from people. You've got a really great psychological handle on the language of what the course actually does. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about your experience with it that you think would be beneficial for people to hear? Why should they do the course? What kinds of things are, I mean, obviously you've shared an amazing grouping of things that you've experienced. But if you had to advise someone, why should I do the course? What am I going to get out of it?
I would say that it's it's like a friend who is always there, no matter the situation, no matter the pain. It's a friend that's always there. It's very consistent. It's very reliable. It's very loving. It's so there is no exception. It's always there,
Mm-hmm.
and it is also when you go to it one day and you will be helped, and then when you come back you return to a certain part of the text, or you return to a certain lesson 6 months later, you will see something different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this it's like moving in a spiral, going deeper every round. You go deeper. So it's very alive and very reliable. I think is a good word.
Right. I mean, I ended up reading the text about 20 times, and people think, well, isn't
Mm-hmm.
that boring reading the same book? Well, you're not reading the same book.
No.
Let's say it takes you a year to read the text, because it's 600 and some pages of very intense wording.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By the time you've read it and go back to read it again, you've had a whole nother year of
Yeah.
revelation, in the sense you've come to
Yeah.
understand yourself more, your life has changed, and so you
Yeah.
start to read it again. One of the things I've likened it to is like learning Russian or something, where if you pick up a Russian book and you've never
Mm-hmm.
taken a Russian lesson, you
Mm-hmm.
don't understand it. It's letters, but you don't understand anything. But if you spend a year studying Russian and then
Yeah.
you pick up that book again, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that is the word village. That's
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start to get a comprehension. You do
Mm-hmm.
another year of Russian lessons and you come back to
Mm-hmm.
the text and you're like, oh, I understand that whole sentence. And that to me is what it literally is, another language. And I think that's why it's bewilderingly confusing at first, because it's using words we know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yet it's hard to comprehend, but it literally is speaking a higher frequency language. And I think that that's why we feel so much better the second we start to read it. If we're having difficulty, you
Yeah.
pick the book up and you start to read it and your mind becomes peaceful again. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it's about, literally.
Mm-hmm.
As you tune into that book, you reclaim the peace that it has given you, that you've lost because of, let's say, an outside
Yeah.
situation. But
Yeah.
literally, I didn't read anything else for 4 years. When I first started,
Mm.
nothing else interested me. I had to just
No.
keep reading the course. Are you finding
Yeah.
that experience?
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing that interests me. I keep coming back to this book every day, pretty much every day. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a lovely story. I guess I'll say I'm sorry you lost your two sons, but obviously it was part of your assignment
Yeah.
in this
It was.
incarnation. And
It
I think
was.
I think it's really
And I just want to I want to say that too, because what the course teaches us about that we are not bodies,
yes,
and we are eternal, and we are spiritual beings. I know that this may sound unbelievable to many people, but I feel privileged is the word.
okay,
Because through these experiences, I've had very visceral experiences. I don't know if that's the right way
the
to
right
put
word.
it.
Yeah.
Visceral experiences of my sons, that they are alive.
Mm.
I mean, maybe visceral is not the right. I feel them. I feel their energies. I communicate with them. They are here. They inspire me. They play with me. So what the course teaches me in theory, I know in practice. And that's don't be sad for what has happened. I'm totally fine with it.
Right. So any loss that someone's going through, even if it's a divorce or a death of a loved one, this is the recommended reading. If you're suffering and you're in, do the course. Yeah, because I think that's, sometimes people lose somebody and their entire life is destroyed by the grief.
Yeah, and I believe that I think you must have a period when you when you allow yourself those feelings, but it will be much shorter if you have another perspective. And then the course, for anyone who is into reading a lot, and I mean, you have to be a reader. Everyone isn't, but you have to, in one way, you have to like reading, I guess, to do the course. It's challenging in that way. Many letters.
Well, I do do a lot of videos where I read it for you.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So the text, I mean, obviously I'm working on the text within our online community. And how's the online community been for you? Is that a good thing for you? Are you enjoying it?
Yes. That's it's so much love, and it was where I started sharing my channelings, and I was very nervous the first time, but I got so much love back, and so that's really been my safe zone, and it has meant so much for me.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Because you never know. When I started it, it was actually an outside person who I actually met this person while I was walking my dog, and he had his dog. And he asked what I did for a living. And I told him, and he goes, "Oh, do you have a website?" So I said, "Yeah, channelingjesus.com." And he went there and he said, "Oh my God, you have so many videos. Like, you need your own platform." And I said, "I do." I didn't know, right? And as just through synchronicity, I met this person who designs these platforms for people to house their own videos and all of that, so that you're not dependent on YouTube, for example. Almost a lot of videos on YouTube, but that complete library that's on Mighty Networks, I didn't know that I could do that. And so I met this another miracle who orchestrated it. And it was literally when COVID hit that community went online, and boy, did people need it. I really think that it was perfectly timed for that time when everyone was at home not knowing what the heck was going on. Fear mongering, fear of death mongering, everyone, like the perfect. I'm like, oh, this is divinely timed that this is available.
Yes. And it's a very loving community, and it's so generous. I mean, you go in there and someone has posted a question or a problem, and they get so much love and so much feedback and advice and encouragement, and it's so
sort of the opposite of other social media programs.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay, well, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really think that's going to be helpful and inspiring for people who are struggling with loss. Have you got any parting words that you'd like to say before we end this?
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for your work. And I'm happy to share my story and my experience.
Yeah, very, very, very intense and amazing story. So it's a wonderful, what a wonderful side effect that the course has brought you. Joy, transformation, and healing of your mind. It's an amazing thing. That's why I do this work. That's why I share with people. My original thought was, people don't need to suffer, but they don't know that they don't need to suffer. And
Mm.
I had come to that conclusion after 12 years of
Yeah.
lessening my suffering. And I was like, wow, people don't need to suffer, but they don't know. So that's really my motivation. And I think your story is going to be really helpful with that idea of, because we all lose something in this world, or we think we've
Yes.
lost something.
Yes. Yes.
But in my experience, the course, you you don't lose anything in doing the course, you only gain.
Mm-hmm.
And that which you don't need leaves you, and you're left with a more joyful,
Mm-hmm.
happy mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll just stop the
Thank you,
recording here,
Tina.
and then we'll have a little chat.
Yeah.